All right, now it's time for your calls. Chicago Public Schools having to not have kids in school today because the teachers union voted to go remote. While offices and buildings are open, kids can be dropped off, but they're not going to have in-person education because the teachers union decided to look at COVID-19 numbers and make that decision themselves. Is it a work stoppage? Should they be concerned about the COVID-19 case rates? Are we seeing that the hospitalizations are primarily there for COVID, or are they there for other reasons? Like, for instance, a broken leg and they just so happen to test positive for COVID, or they got into a bad car accident and they just so happen to test positive for COVID. I think we need more context for a lot of these hospital numbers that we've seen. Because we know that the Omicron variant is much more widespread and something that is more contagious, but seems to be less severe. So I think we do need more context in these numbers. But at least in Chicago, they were back in school on Monday. Yesterday, they had the teachers union vote, and an overwhelming majority of the Chicago Public Schools teachers union members voted to stay home. So they're not in class today. And that means that kids are not in class either. And there's all kinds of problems arising with the idea of not having kids in person to do learning, and the negative impacts that has on kids when it comes to not having in-person learning. So we have this conversation now happening across the state where you've got school districts in Edwardsville. They've got some staff that are out with COVID, so they had to go remote. In Springfield, it's a different story. They're not scheduled to come back until January 10th. So that's coming up Monday. But there are some other area schools that are set to come back or already have come back. One that's set to come back is Chatham, but other school districts have come back in person. But with Springfield District 186, there's been some pushing for an adaptive pause. What is an adaptive pause? It's a decision coordinated with the local health department to make the call on saying your COVID numbers are too high, you need to stay remote. That decision's not been made for District 186 in Springfield. And it's something that Jennifer Gill last night at the Springfield School Board raised. But we get to the I think, overarching question here. And it's a question that Chicago Department of Public Health Commissioner Dr. Allison Arwady yesterday at a news conference, she laid out, and she talked about the overall harm that can be done to students who are forced to learn remotely. And I want to get your response to this. 217-629-7970, 217-629-7970. That's the phone number here for the WMAY morning news feed. So I want to get your response to this clip of Dr. Allison Arwady yesterday of the City of Chicago Public Health Department talking about the impacts of kids' mental health, physical health when they're not in person, getting in-person education, and how we need to learn to live with COVID-19. So here's Dr. Allison Arwady.
Not yet recovered from the negative effects that we saw from so many kids trying to learn remotely. And, it's my job to think about health broadly. And health broadly, especially for kids, it's protecting from COVID, but are they in settings that protect their physical health, promote their mental health, make sure that they are emotionally developing in the way that they need to, that they're having the social interactions? And it is, people around the country they just say to me, like, what is going on in Chicago? Our schools are all demanding that we should take the masks off, and you're not wanting to come back. And again, I understand that people are scared. I understand that you're looking at those numbers and seeing that they're high. But I want to just reassure you that, especially if you're vaccinated, your child is vaccinated, this is behaving really like the flu, and we don't close school districts, especially for extended periods of time, for the flu.
So I want your reaction to that. She says, especially if you're vaccinated or your kids are vaccinated, this is acting really like the flu, she said, and that we don't close school districts down for the flu. So your thoughts at 217-629-7970. We have some comments also this morning from Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot, very critical of the teachers union in Chicago, ultimately making the decision not to allow kids to come to school because teachers weren't going to be there. That's impacting 300,000 students. And it raises the question of, are we marching back towards having remote learning across the state? Because 2020, we were reviewing all of those numbers that were shown of school districts that were remote versus those that were partially in person. You remember the hybrid model where it was like half days, 3 days a week, and then the rest were at home remote learning, and just all the learning loss that happened. And then we also got to work into the equation here, the conversation about private and public schools and what they're doing. Are they marching right ahead and doing in-person education and focusing on getting kids back into school? Then you get into the questions of those who are going remote. Are they going to have to stick around longer in the school year? Are they able to fit that in? What do you think about all this? And especially, what do you think about Allison Arwady, the doctor, commissioner of the Chicago Public Health Department, saying that, hey, if you're vaccinated, if your kids are vaccinated and you get COVID, this really is acting and behaving like the flu, and we don't close schools down for the flu. Good morning. You're on WMAY.
Hey, how many times did Grandpa Joe say he was going to shut down the virus?
He ran on it. Yeah, he ran on it and said that was going to be his crowning achievement of sorts, right? But then he comes out just a few weeks ago, was last week even, saying that there's no federal solution to COVID-19, even though he trashed former President Donald Trump for not doing enough to battle COVID-19. 217-629-7970. That's the phone number again, 217-629-7970. I want to play again a little bit of this clip of Allison Arwady talking about COVID-19 policies and schools. So again, here's Dr. Allison Arwady.
But I want to just reassure you that, especially if you're vaccinated, your child is vaccinated, this is behaving really like the flu, and we don't close school districts, especially for extended periods of time, for the flu.
So your phone calls at 217-629-7970. I highly doubt this is the last time we talk about this subject. It'd be interesting to see if anything like policies concerning schools, policies concerning COVID mandates, policies concerning how businesses and children are impacted by all of this. Is that going to be discussed at all at the Illinois legislature when they return? We shall see. I'll be at the state capitol later on today to chase around some elected officials with a microphone and a camera and ask them some important questions about all of this and more. 217-629-7970. Good morning. You're on WMAY.
Hey, morning, Greg.
Hey,
you know me. I'm a vaccine kind of guy. But I think the schools should stay open. My grandkids go back to school this Monday, and the school they go to does not plan on going remote at all.
is that a private school, a parochial school?
It's a charter school.
Oh, yeah, we talked about this yesterday. That's right.
Yeah, so it's not really connected with 186, but it is, but it isn't. But the thing that lady says, this is what I want everybody to understand. I agree with what she said, but the key she said was if people are vaccinated.
Right, yeah.
That's the problem is if you're not vaccinated, I still think you're playing Russian roulette.
Well, and I think that depends on therapeutics, and that's a conversation we've not had enough of, right? I mean, we're not talking about people, getting healthy and eating the right foods and getting exercise, dropping weight, because obesity is a major driver of bad outcomes with COVID-19. Yeah. So we don't have enough conversation about that aspect, but we also don't have enough conversation about the therapeutics that are available. And that's another topic for another day, but some people feel that the therapies that are working against COVID-19 are being suppressed so that they can make way for the vaccine. And I think we have to have those therapies widely available. I appreciate the call. Got to take a break here with the WMAY